On July 26, 2025, Gaza's night sky brought something new. Parachutes, not bombs, drifting silently through the darkness. For the first time in months, the air was filled not with fear, but with a fragile sense of anticipation and relief. After relentless international pressure and urgent calls from aid organizations, Israel resumed airdropping food aid to Gaza, breaking a long and painful pause in humanitarian deliveries. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza had reached a devastating breaking point. With land borders sealed tight, over 2 million residents face starvation, unable to access even the most basic necessities for survival. The airdrops, though limited in scale, became a rare symbol of hope for families enduring hunger and despair. For many, it was the first sign in months that the world had not forgotten them. For months, haunting images of emaciated children and desperate crowds waiting for food shocked the world's conscience, sparking outrage and forcing Israeli authorities to reconsider their stance. This move is seen as both a response to mounting global outrage and a necessary attempt to address the catastrophic conditions on the ground, even as critics argue it is not enough. Yet this gesture is only a small step in a crisis that demands far more than a few parachutes of food. The scale of need in Gaza is overwhelming, and the aid delivered so far barely scratches the surface. The suffering in Gaza remains immense, and the world is watching closely, hoping for real, lasting solutions that go beyond symbolic gestures and truly address the urgent needs of its people. The first airdrop delivered just 7 pallets, an amount that, while dramatic in its arrival, was shockingly small in substance. It was less than a single aid truck's worth, barely a fraction of what's needed for even a single neighborhood. The pallets were filled with flour, sugar, and canned goods, basic staples that can only go so far in the face of overwhelming need. For a population of over 2 million, this was a drop in the ocean, highlighting the severe limitations of airdrops as a solution to a humanitarian crisis of this scale. Aid often lands in unpredictable, sometimes dangerous locations, scattered across open fields or even in areas under threat, making fair and safe distribution nearly impossible. The strongest and fastest often claim the supplies, while the elderly, children, and those most in need are left behind, watching helplessly. Humanitarian groups call airdrops a last resort, expensive, inefficient, and a sign that diplomacy has failed to open land routes for sustained relief. While any food is better than none, Gaza needs open borders and a flood of aid, not just symbolic gestures from the sky that barely scratch the surface of the crisis. The world's focus must shift to real access and safety for those delivering life-saving help, because only then can true relief reach those who need it most. Starvation is now a daily reality in Gaza, with deaths from malnutrition and dehydration mounting. Conflict and blockades have destroyed food systems, bakeries are closed, farmland ruined, and fishing halted. Families survive on animal feed and weeds, while disease spreads due to lack of clean water. Children suffer most, with hospitals overwhelmed by cases of severe malnutrition. The crisis is not a natural disaster, but the result of policy decisions that have cut off basic necessities. International warnings of famine have gone unheeded for months, as Gaza's future is jeopardized by preventable catastrophe. The world's failure to act decisively has left an entire generation at risk. Israel's decision to resume airdrops marks a significant shift in its approach to the ongoing crisis in Gaza, signaling a response to growing international scrutiny. The announcement of new humanitarian measures came after weeks of mounting international condemnation, with global protests and urgent calls from the United Nations and world leaders demanding action. Pressure from key allies, especially the United States and European nations, played a crucial role in pushing Israel to reconsider its policies. Alongside the renewed airdrops, Israel declared a tactical pause in fighting, creating a brief window to allow desperately needed aid to reach civilians. In addition, electricity was restored to Gaza's only functioning desalination plant, a critical step for the region's access to clean water. Access to clean water is as vital as food, especially in a region where infrastructure has been devastated and basic needs are often unmet. This move aims to curb the spread of deadly diseases, which thrive in overcrowded shelters and areas lacking proper sanitation. These steps, while positive, are seen as long overdue by aid organizations who have repeatedly warned of a deepening humanitarian catastrophe. For months, they have pleaded for safe access to deliver food, water, and medical supplies to those most in need. Essential services have been out of reach for many, leaving families waiting in long lines for basic necessities. Critics argue that this policy shift is more about improving Israel's international image than enacting genuine, lasting change on the ground. The real test will be whether these measures expand into a consistent, reliable system for relief, rather than isolated gestures. For now, the actions offer a glimmer of hope to Gaza's residents, but the suffering and uncertainty persist for thousands of families. Only a sustained, long-term commitment from all parties can truly address Gaza's ongoing humanitarian disaster and bring lasting relief to its people. The world's response to Gaza's crisis has been urgent but frustrated, with airdrops and pauses in fighting seen as insufficient. The UN insists only open land crossings and massive aid flows can prevent total collapse. Israel faces sharp criticism for its role in the crisis, with many holding it responsible for the dire conditions. International pressure, graphic images, and legal threats have forced policy changes, but these are just first steps. True relief requires a lasting ceasefire, political resolution, and a global effort to rebuild Gaza. For Gazans, every pallet of food is a lifeline, but real hope depends on the world's willingness to address the root causes. Emergency measures are not enough. The world must act for lasting peace and dignity.